On this episode, we'll discuss how ministries can effectively reach their communities online. Well, hey there, and welcome to another episode of the Church Leadership Lab podcast, the show that is dedicated to inspiring leaders and empowering healthy churches. And we do that through conversations, interviews, and really just sharing stories, all as we just explore what is happening in ministry today and how pastors and leaders can navigate what lies ahead. I am your host, Kendall Connor, and we have a great episode planned for you today. Joining us is a very special guest, and that is the one and only Steve Fogg. And if you have not connected with him, let me tell you a little bit of background before we jump into our conversation. Steve was an early adopter of church online. I know that's a subject that is dear to a lot of us. And as we have experimented with live streaming and different things in your churches, he was an early adopter of the church online. He envisioned and started and grew his church online campus in 2015, growing it to over 16,000 regular attendees from over 130 different countries. Absolutely amazing. Steve still serves as an online campus pastor at Crossway in Melbourne, Australia, where he started that ministry of live streaming and building that online campus. And he oversees all things digital and the online church there. He is passionate about making Jesus known online. And he's also passionate about helping other churches to reach more people online and transform more lives. You can already tell this is going to be an exciting episode. And so without further ado, I want to jump into this conversation today as we discuss how ministries can effectively reach their communities online. So let's jump in. Well, hey there, Steve. How are you? Thank you for joining us today.
I'm doing really well. Thanks, Kendall. Really good to be with you today.
Yeah, it's exciting, and I really appreciate you working with the time difference because I know that you're literally quite on the other side of the world from where I'm recording from today, and so we made it happen, didn't we? With the time difference,
we're there. The future is looking amazing. It's our morning, your afternoon/evening, and we're in our summer. You're in your winter, so wow. Yeah, it's all upside down, crazy.
Yeah, no, I love that. And man, the power of technology and what we can do online just to make all this stuff happen is incredible. Right. Now, look, we just read a public bio, right? And we shared what I would consider to be, the on the back of the book, so to speak. But I want to dive a little bit deeper. What's something about you that maybe wouldn't make that public bio that all your friends and family would know about you?
Yeah, well, there's a couple of things. One is I love Italian coffee. I recently had the lovely experience of coming to the United States, to Texas last October. So the first thing I was desperate to do was find a good coffee with jet lag after being on the plane for 17 hours. I bet. The second thing, which is my passion and it's partly health and mental health, is I love being on a bike. I'm a roadie, what we call a roadie. So I love being in a bunch of guys wearing Lycra. I'm slightly older and heavier these days, but I'm what's called a mammal. And a mammal, for those that aren't in the cycling world, is a middle-aged man in Lycra. And I'm moving towards being a vomit, which is a very old man in something. I'm not sure what the T stands for. But I love that. And I love being out really early in the morning, watching the sunrise. I worship God through creation a lot. So whether it's clouds, whether it's sunrise, connecting with guys in my local community who don't attend a church, who are curious about this weird guy that does this internet pastor stuff. So that's a little bit of what people won't know on the back of the cover. And I've been doing it for about 15 years now. And I absolutely love it. I didn't go riding this morning because of you, right? And you didn't want to see sweaty Betty Steve on the podcast. So I thought, I'm not going to go for a ride because normally I finish about 15 minutes before this call, and it would be impossible. It would be like I had major sunburn. That's how I would look, because the guys are getting younger in the group and I'm getting older. So, my heart rate's going up and their heart rate's just cruising along. So that's just something I love to do, which is completely away from church and completely away from kind of digital as well, which is even more important for me, because it can be a tad addictive.
I'm not a cyclist, right? But I got to be honest with you. Hearing your enthusiasm for it, as I'm like, okay, maybe I need to figure this out. Maybe I need to get out there and give this a try. I don't want to know what acronym you share, different ones. I don't want to know which one I would be, but I know that it would definitely be the beginning stages, right?
Yeah. Well, the beginning stages are the best stages because everything is new, and you're learning so much about your body. And how inept we all are physically. And then you just, and then you realize, oh, this lycra is actually quite figure hugging, isn't it? And
oh, that's too funny. And I don't want to skip past this. You said how much you love coffee, and you said you came and you visited Texas and you were searching for that cup. Did you actually find a cup that you felt was worthy when you visited?
Yeah, I actually did. I stayed in a hotel called, I think it was called the Mexicana, near DFW Airport. I think it's called. And they actually had a coffee shop. So in the morning it was like an Italian coffee, and in the evening it was a cocktail bar. I don't do cocktails so much, but I love coffee in the morning. So I was visiting there twice in the morning. So I'd have to go from the conference down 4 flights of stairs back to this coffee, and there's coffee in the conference and all that sort of stuff.
Work for it a little bit.
Yeah. And again, I operate in the Australian dollar, not the American dollar. Yeah. We commonly refer it to the Australian peso compared to the American dollar because it's so bad. So my coffees were costing me a fortune, but boy, was it worth it. Was it worth it?
Yeah. That's awesome. And, I'm sure that there's going to be some listeners who are checking this out who are thinking, they know exactly the area you're talking about. They know exactly, they probably even know, being by the airport, they probably know exactly where you're talking about. So who knows? You may have drawn some business over there where you found that good cup of coffee. So I want to jump into our conversation today. I know that you're passionate about online ministry and all the things that come with that. Maybe if we can start from this avenue of a website. Every church, I would say, in 2025 and beyond needs a website because it often serves as the first impression, right, for so many churches. What would you say are the important elements of a website? Would you agree with me that it is an essential thing in 2025?
100% would agree. Yeah, your church website is your digital front porch. The big challenge I see, so I'm from a non-Christian background and an unchurched background. I became a Christian when I was in my late 20s, got married. Wow. My wife was a Christian, and I'm what's called a flirt convert. And one of the things that I kind of scratched my head about, and forgive me, pastors who are listening to this following comment, I'd love to challenge the status quo. Your church website, if it is your digital front porch, then why aren't you talking to the people who are visiting? So often churches, we talk to those who are attending, not visiting. So we use complicated insider language that only those who attend a church would understand. And the same on our social channels and the same all over. Yeah. So my encouragement to everyone listening is have a look at your church website or show your church website to someone who doesn't go to church and ask them if they can decode what's on there. So it doesn't have to be the fact that the whole thing is re-geared towards someone that's visiting for the first time. But I know just the analytics that I see across all the churches that I actually work with, around between 60 to 70% of visitors are first-time visitors.
Yes.
And it's kind of a generalized statistic, but it's true. And it's data that Google tells us. So if we do that, then why don't we speak in a language that people understand? And why don't we say hello? Versus what most churches will do, they'll put their mission statement or their vision statement on their landing page or a picture of their church building.
Right.
And so my encouragement would just be, hey, it's a friendly hello. Invite someone into a conversation. Invite someone to see a little bit of content really quickly and simply. And really, really just think about who what we call in marketing, we call it your primary audience, right? You've got a primary audience and a secondary audience.
Yes.
And I unapologetically say your primary audience should be that person that's exploring faith or checking it out or coming back versus your church membership. And, we're a large church here in Melbourne, Australia. And I tell my comms team all the time, hey, we've just got to get better at that. And we don't always succeed because we have stuff that's going on, busy stuff. But let's posture ourselves, as well as in our vision and mission statement, that we're reaching you who's visiting the World Church website, that we're actually having a conversation with you.
Yes.
And that's just really, really important to think about because words matter. And you never get a second chance to make a first impression, right? So that first 4 or 5 seconds when someone visits you and finds you for whatever reason is so, so important.
Wow. So even though it may step on some toes, right? I feel like that's a message that needs to be heard. It is an important thing because sometimes, we get so caught up as ministry leaders, we're catering things to our congregation, our insiders. But that kind of insider language or curse of knowledge, right? It can really get us in trouble when we are trying to reach out our neighbors who have no clue what that ministry name means, or the mission statement is. You work hard on it. It's an important thing, but having it front and center for someone who's brand new just may not be the right spot.
Yeah, and I think also when people see mission statement or a vision statement, and I'm all on board with those. I think a church needs to have that rallying call. But I think when we put that as the first thing that people see, then they feel like an object or a target. Versus, and again, it's just a throwaway line that we love to use at Crossway, which is you're known, you're loved by God and by us. And it's just it's the Great Commission, but we're trying to say it in a different way. And we've still got a vision and a mission statement. Our mission statement is to see our city, nation, and nations become disciples of Jesus. And if we put that on our front page, well, people know we're a church and that's fine. But it's not, it's kind of like, you don't go to a party, right? You don't go to a party, shake someone's hand and say, hey, I want to see our city, nation, and nations become disciples of Jesus. No, we say, hello, how are you? My name's Steve. Kendall, nice to meet you. I believe you're interested in becoming a cyclist. That's great. So we've just got to change that introductory conversation.
No, I love that. And I think maybe this applies not only to a website, but another area that I know that you have a lot of expertise in is the social media side. We know how big social media is. It has been for a long time. Sometimes I feel like it's still one of those things that's on a back burner for churches. What can you speak to in terms of social media and how churches can use those in this day and age?
Yeah. Well, most churches will look at their social media kind of like what they look at their church bulletin, if you have those still. And it's really a series of announcements. We've got this potluck dinner here. We've got a small group thing over here. We've got our weekend services. We're really excited about that. Please come along. And really social media is social, not an announcement bulletin board. And so I know
not to
that
take away from the potluck, right? Like the potluck, sure, let's eat, let's get together. But if I'm only hearing about those announcements, I mean, come on, that's not the point.
Yeah, and look, the way the algorithms work now is that they don't reward us for that sort of content. So there was a time back in the day where Facebook or Instagram really didn't care, and they would just put it out for a certain amount of time. But now what they call throttle back content that doesn't have engagement. So if your audience isn't engaging with the content, liking, sharing, like watch time on the content, that they literally hide it. Okay, so there's incentive for you as a church to say, hey, what sort of content should we be putting out there? So it should be, one, it should be social. It should be an engagement piece of content where it's really not a full stop where someone reads it and just moves on. It should be a question. I don't mean literally a question all the time. It's just how does it provoke some sort of response and engagement?
Yes.
And really, the big shift that I've also seen in the last couple of years, and then probably most people intuitively would have seen this shift, but basically we've gone from what we call the social age to the discovery age, which means it's more important than ever for that sort of really sticky sort of content to be out there. So what does that mean? So, that's really the feeds are showing your content to people that don't follow you. So it used to be that it was all about relational connection to your page. Let's just give an example, a Facebook page. But now Facebook, for example, is showing your content to people that don't follow you. So it's more of what they call a discovery algorithm, which provides great opportunity. It's your digital front porch again, but it's got to be that engagement sort of content. And as soon as you've got a piece of engaging content, then off you go. You'll be seen by more people. And there's just some practical ways that you can get involved with that. If you're a pastor and you're by yourself and you go, God, that's great, Steve. You've got a comms team, you've got support and all that sort of stuff. And it is a hamster wheel, even for a team like mine. But there are some great software tools out there, just on your sermon, that you can take your sermon. And again, I love using tech for the purpose of the gospel. And it will repurpose your sermon into bite-sized, what we call reels, and also picture posts. And this is all seamless. Like it will do it in minutes, and it will pick out your main points. And it is not surprisingly accurate, but it is really good at getting most of your main points and your sticky sayings. And whereas what would traditionally happen is you need a video editor, you need a graphic designer, and there's just a whole layer of things. And there's some really helpful tools that will just help you be more engaging as a church. So my encouragement to you, Pastor, if you're listening, is go check them out and explore those products, because I think it's not about productivity per se. It's about the type of content that you're creating. At the end of the day, we want that really engaging content for your church.
No, I love that. And it is, I don't want to use the word entertain, but if you can imagine, I feel like that is ultimately what gets rewarded on these platforms now, right? Because each platform, they want people to stay there longer, to enjoy their time there. And so, something like an engaging post that, people can start a conversation on, or, a video clip of your pastor speaking from Sunday. Those are things that are consumed, they're enjoyed, they're interacted with. They go so much farther than, come on, back to the potluck, just that announcement. Okay. Well, thank you. Thanks for the update. But these days, having something a little bit more seems to be so much more effective. I love that.
Yeah. And you're right there, Kendall. It's about these platforms. They want you to be on the platform.
Yes.
So what that means is that, they will reward you if you're creating content that keeps people on the platform. That's essentially 100%. What their business model is.
Yes.
For a church, it's really just creating not necessarily entertainment, but it's content that people want to really dig into, and stops the scroll, if you like.
Yeah. Yeah, and I use that word cautiously, entertain, but for lack of a better word, but 100%. That is engaging, that people want to consume. No, so I love that. So we talked about clips from the message. Let's talk about live streaming. And I know that this is your area of expertise. It's so popular. Would you say that a live stream for a church is essential for ministries today?
Absolutely. If you've got the capacity to do it, 100%. You can do also what's called Sim Live. If actually live streaming is a challenge. Simulated live it's actually live in the moment, but you just push it out a little bit later. But for the person that's watching, if you've got online hosts, it just feels live. For a lot of churches, there's plenty of software out there that will help you. The big thing with live stream is really just audio quality, both for if it's your weekend service, for your worship, and your team who are singing. That's just really the one big thing I encourage. Vision, yes, of course, we love to have beautiful vision, but I think people are a lot more tolerant of not necessarily TV grade vision for a stream. Like, whether we're hopping on this platform that we're using right now or Zoom or something else, feels like the intuitive nature of what people are prepared to extract for a stream is slightly lower, and that's okay. Yeah. But certainly when it comes to audio, they won't listen to a group of herding cats who sound like cats, but they will listen to worship that sounds okay. And that, I realize, for some churches is always a challenge. But I'd highly encourage it. And the reason why is that, and especially on YouTube right now, YouTube will push your live stream out to many people who aren't following you.
Wow.
So imagine that an external organization was inviting everybody to church. That's what it's doing right now. I don't know how long this will last for. I don't know. 68% of our YouTube streams, we do 4 services on a weekend. 68% of the people that watch our content are there for the first time. And that's what YouTube is doing. It's not us doing it. It's YouTube doing it. And it's because we're live streaming it as opposed to just sending up a premiere or something like that. So it is critical. The same for Facebook as well. Facebook will reward you as well, depending on who's engaging with content. Your church website, of course, I'm a massive proponent of Church Online platform. I think it's fantastic. But it generally is more for your existing audience who already knows where to go on your church website. Gives you that chat
feature and things like that, and you just plug your live stream into that, right?
Yeah. So, and the same for Facebook and the same for YouTube. You can chat in there. We've worked incredibly hard to make our streams like an engaging stream where people will want to chat, not to take away from what's happening on the camera, but just it helps me as a pastor identify them, and in many cases it starts a conversation which leads to an offline conversation versus just thousands of people watching a stream. We'd like to take them, help them take that next step. And that's really the purpose of it, because every single week, if you think 68% of your congregation is the first time visitor, wow, that's pretty amazing. Yeah.
No, I love that, and forgive me, I didn't have this in the notes that I sent over to you, but just hearing some of how you're engaging your online audience when you're streaming. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? How are you? So I imagine that you're involved in the chat, or you have some of your team who are involved in the chat and kind of keeping the conversation, or maybe you're helping them take next steps. What does that look like practically?
Yeah, so we use different vehicles in our chat, with that said, so generally speaking, the start of the service is me to camera. So I'm literally saying, hey, welcome everybody to Crossway Online. My name is Pastor Steve Fogg, blah, 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 blah. Dive into the chat. Let us know where you're watching from. And I've done that. That's separate
than what's happening on stage, right? This is dedicated just for online.
This is dedicated. So instead of a pre-roll or anything like that, it's we have a kind of little bump of video at the start, and then it's me on camera. And we realize it's a smaller percentage of people then because people are tuning in. But then we'll use different parts of the service to reiterate that. So our worship team, when they get up, they'll say, hey, and welcome to everybody who's watching online. another connection point. Then when our host in the middle of the service gets up, he goes, "Hey, everyone, welcome to Crossway. If you're watching online as well and in the room, online, welcome. Go chat to Pastor Steve. He's in the chat right now." And that moment there is the bigger moment just because it's midstream. So I'm on camera and I'm in the chat with my chat team. And it's really kind of trying to use multiple touch points through the service, because we know online, and for some pastors here, they're not going to like this. But for online, people might only watch 10 minutes of your service. And that's the reality, that they're scrolling, they're watching a piece. But we want to use those multiple touch points to connect with them. So we're dropping links into the chat. We're dropping kind of next steps into the chat throughout that service. But the goal is not just to keep them on the stream. The goal is to take them to a next step. So we have an online Facebook group that we want to get people plugged into. For those people who aren't on Facebook, it's a WhatsApp, or they can send me a message on our church website. On Facebook, when we're streaming, it's even cooler, because when someone goes into the chat on Facebook or even just likes our content, what that allows me to do, both as the page admin, allows me to send them a direct message during the service. I have a templated sequence of messages. "Hey, it's Pastor Steve here. So pleased that you could join us today. Tell me about yourself." And that's while the service is happening. It's a one-to-one message. So I'm not just doing, it's not just a public engagement, it's one-to-one. It's outward bound as opposed to inward bound. And we find that with the outward bound messaging, the response rate is nearly 100%. And even after the service, I'll send people messages from my own profile who have engaged with our content. "So good to see you today. I'd love to hear more about your story. Tell me your story of faith, or are you exploring faith? How can I pray for you? Regards, Steve."
Wow.
And they've seen me on camera. They see my little icon sending them a message. And literally, I reckon it's nearly 100% replies.
Amazing.
And people will share their life story with me, their journey and the challenges that they're facing. And that's what most churches struggle with, right? They see people on the stream, but they really struggle with the engagement piece. And that's really the big thing, because we're not there to make viewers, we're there to make disciples. And that's really my role. It's a pastoral role. It's so not an on-screen role.
Wow, I love that, and it just takes it so much farther than, okay, we're just going to live stream the service. It's intentional. You've got a lot of heart behind it, and you're actually reaching these people and helping them to take next steps in their faith. I love that. Absolutely incredible. And I'm sitting over here taking notes. I know that so many people are going to get a lot of value and will want to try some of these things. I'm just kind of curious. And okay, so we've talked on several different areas of communication, right? Of reaching people online. It takes a village to be able to accomplish some of these tasks for a church, right? Even in small churches, it can sometimes be really challenging for just one person to manage it. As you get more people involved, as you get different platforms, website, email, social, live stream, what is the best way to make sure that you're keeping everything consistent? How do you kind of keep that authenticity as things grow that you've just described?
Look, for the vast majority of churches, I'd say if you're in a position to have a communications person that can have that focus, that's a really good starting point. Myself, that's actually where I started at Crossway as the communications director. And it was in 2007 where I saw social media come in, and kind of my interest was piqued to, this could be useful actually for ministry. How can we... But having someone that could oversee everything and look at it from a holistic, quote unquote, brand point of view, and it's not about necessarily being the brand police, although my comms team send me out to be the brand's police sometimes. It's really about having an authentic message across all your channels. And really that's what it's about. And it's never perfect. Sure. Like every church is a duck on water, right? It gliding across, and we're paddling like mad underneath, because we all face that pressure of time and energy and effort and budget. But it really is possible when you have someone who's just focused and they own that as a consistency across all your channels. And if you're a pastor, you're listening and you go, well, who could that be? It's probably a young person that's a creative. And they might be a graphic designer, but they'll know enough about comms. And there's tons of resources out there that will help them. It may be that it's actually a videographer. So if you see someone who's on their phone a lot, like you can help people pivot a little bit across that discipline. But it's really just having someone saying, yep, this is me, and I'm going to own comms for the church, and it's just going to be consistent across all our channels.
I love that. And I would just encourage again, pastors and leaders who are listening to this, that's literally my story, right? As a 14-year-old, our church added a media booth, right? They added their projector, they brought in a computer, and I was that kid that they identified and said, hey, I bet they would be good at doing some of these technical related things. And it changed my life. It changed, the course of my life, where I was going, and you can do that same thing for there's some young person who is there that can help with this, and not only are they going to help you, but it gives you the opportunity to help them, right?
Absolutely, you're helping someone. So in church world, we when we say come and serve, we as church leaders we have a predefined list of what that means, and a lot of it, the energy is around the Sunday service, right?
Sure.
But the reality is most what we call the creative industry doesn't fit into that neat box.
Sure.
But the church needs it. Your church needs it. Yes. Whether it's a graphic designer, whether it's a comms person, whether it's a social media person, whether it's a content creator, whether it's a video editor, that they're not boxes that fit into church serving traditionally. Yes. But we live in a society, in a world that will ignore you, but if you want to get noticed and you want to get seen and you want to be found by people online, you've got to have these teams in place. You've got to build those teams, and it takes a long time to do that. But you'll be surprised how many people, it is their sweet spot and they found their spot and they're just so grateful.
Yeah.
And just like your story, my story, Kendall, is I was at a church members meeting, and I was working in a large advertising agency at the time. I was a creative director, and I'd just become a Christian. And my senior pastor held up their annual report, and it was basically a photocopy that they'd done on there, and it was horrible.
You were cringing, horrible. Right?
So I went up to him afterwards, and I just said, Pastor Stuart, this is what I do. Could I do your next annual report? Could I actually design it and we'll print it? And I showed him just what I did. I was doing annual reports for major corporations. I said, this is what I do. I'd love to do it for you for free. You're just going to have to pay for the printing, but I just think it'll lift you up. And then for the next 4 years, I was basically doing our annual report. And I was putting fly leaf paper in it. I was doing all kinds of beautiful things and having lots of fun. But it's just how I started serving, because it's just, again, find those people, because there are people who work in agencies in your congregation, there are people who work in marketing in your congregation, there are people who work in video. They just need to be tapped on the shoulder, and they'd love to serve.
Yeah. Wow. And to me, that's encouraging for, serving in my own church. It's a good reminder that there's other people, and that we're the same way where you, you and me, right? They just need to be asked. They just need to have an opportunity to be able to use their gifts. And how amazing it is that the church, just seeing the church in action, and, God put together all these different puzzle pieces. And when we come together, it really is amazing what can happen. I love that. I want to ask you something that we We ask a lot of our guests when they come on, because it's central to our mission for this podcast. We believe in empowering healthy churches. I'm curious, what would you say, in your opinion, is one essential component of a healthy church? And maybe that's a church online.
Look, I'm really biased. I think there are a lot of things from a ministry point of view that you can do for a healthy church, but a healthy church is found. A healthy church gets found and wants to be found. And again, I'm coming from an online angle and a comms angle. I just see most churches are lost in the jungle of Google. And they're deep within the jungle, and they're never going to be found. And I think a healthy church understands that people are searching not necessarily for a church. They're searching for answers to their life's big questions.
Wow.
And what that means is that you're creating content that people are actually searching for.
Yes.
And often we'll do that in a sermon. So you might be saying, we already do that. We've got a sermon and it's great. But it's not discoverable by Google. And so if you've got that kind of apologetic content out there, repurpose that content and put it into written form.
Yeah.
And my encouragement to you is that the more people searching for who is Jesus, or why did Jesus die, or is Jesus real, than are searching for your church. And 100%. It literally goes into the hundreds of thousands and millions of people every single week who are searching for that sort of content. If it was Christmas, it's kind of like how did Christmas really start? It's very Christmassy. If it's Easter, it's why do we celebrate Easter? What's Easter really about?
Answering questions that people are actually searching for.
Yeah, and again, when I talk with churches, it's around content. It's really around what is it that you feel like God's calling you to ministry-wise, and you're probably going to have some ministries that you want your community to know you about and step in. And then what sort of content can you create that will help you get discovered? So it's not just a calendar on your event that says, let's say it's a recovery sort of ministry that you've got. Most people aren't searching for a recovery ministry, but what they're searching for is, how can I get help with my addiction, whether it's to porn, whether it's to alcohol, whatever. Right. How does your church get found? And again, it's not necessarily a health sign, but it's the intent that you're not necessarily here just for you. You're here for your community, and you're thinking strategically about that. So, and you'll probably preach on it. You'll probably have, content and events set up for that sort of stuff. If that's what you do, it could be marriage ministry.
Right.
Do you know one of the biggest things, Kendall? People are searching for prayer online. We live in such a lonely society. And often we'll have a prayer ministry of what I call the holy rollers. And I love my prayer. They're the older members of our community who just love to pray. And they're gracious and they're lovely and they love to pray. But that juice gets going when they're praying for someone who's just come to church for the first time. Yeah. And one of the people are searching for to get prayer online. Like they want to get prayer. Wow. And so if you go into Google right now and search I want prayer, does your church get found? Wow. And that's the reality, because it's that sweet spot. Are you familiar with something called the Engel scale?
No, tell me.
So the Engel scale is basically think about a series of chain loops, and that's someone's spiritual journey. So there's some I read it at Bible college. It's basically where is that person at? If they're at 0, they're an atheist. If they're at 5, they're kind of maybe agnostic, and if they're at 10, they've become a Christian, right? So most people in a kind of 5 to 7 range are exploring faith, but also they're open when they're in times of trouble to have prayer. And so in that kind of sweet spot of people who are there online, there are opportunities for that. So again, most of us will do something to a form or something. And again, so you want it just on your church website. How can we pray for you? It's 100% confidential.
Have it on your website, right?
Yeah. Just put it on your website. It's just a simple page. We'd love to pray for you. If you'd like someone to follow you up and pray for you over the phone, we'd love to do that too. Simple name and address. And I get prayer requests every single week. We put Google ads around prayer
And we pray for you
because we know we have an opportunity to minister to a person before they step into the four walls of our church. And that really, for digital ministry, is the big opportunity. You don't have to wait until someone turns up at church on Sunday to minister to them. And again, there are all different types of searches that this can happen on. I just wanted to give you one example, but don't wait. Don't think that someone's got to come to church. Don't think that someone's got to be on your physical property for ministry to happen.
Right. Oh, I love that. And to me, that is a amazing answer to, what does a healthy church look like? It's one that people can find. It's one that's found and that is actually connecting with people. And, I love those ideas, especially the prayer, the power of prayer and, just being there for people when they need it the most. I love that. And, so practical, and it seems so simple, but you think at the same time, it's something that, a lot of places, a lot of churches have not tried. So I love that. As we come up on the end, something that we always love to do, Steve, is we love to do a rapid fire final five.
Let's go.
Are you up for that today?
Yeah, I'm up for that. Let's go.
All right, let's jump right into them. What is one book that you would recommend to church leaders?
Oh, that's easy. Here's something I prepared earlier. My friend, Jay Crander, has written a book.
Wow.
Online Church is Not the Answer. We're both online pastors. We're both old people in the area. Jay's written a great book for the average church leader, if you want to understand more. There's a second book, AI and the Church by Jason Moore. Wow. And I see we're at a tipping point right now, like we were with social media around 2005 to 2007, where this new massive change is coming into society. And Jason just really unpacks how church leaders can really engage with a concept that's new to a lot of people. And just practically, I think Jay, really nails kind of the strategy for online ministry as well.
That's incredible. Great recommendations. Let me ask you this. What would be the last thing that you listened to on Spotify or Apple Music, wherever you listen to your music?
Michael Bublé Christmas album. I am an absolute sucker for Christmas music.
Love it.
It's either that or one of my kids has gone onto my Spotify account and they've just put some sort of Korean dance music on there, and it's like just switches on.
I can relate to that. My kids have hijacked all of my music accounts.
Yeah. So all in my theme, it's like all these weird Korean kind of stuff that's in there. My daughter loves to do hip hop dancing, and so she loves that K-pop stuff.
Yeah. Oh, that's relatable. My music recommendations are all messed up, so I get that. What would you say is your favorite piece of technology or software these days? Oh, look,
so I am on the journey of AI, and I'm in the early stages of just exploring and there's lots of different products out there to look at. But I use a product called Magi. Magi is it's basically like an aggregator for AI. It's brought all these products into one place.
Yeah.
And it's just helping me simply and cheaply explore all these different products. And it's helping me create some really good stuff. And I'm finding what works and what doesn't work. And it's got nothing to do with what my day-to-day at the minute yet.
Sure.
But I can see the application in terms of especially content repurposing.
Yeah. No, I love that. And we just wrapped up an episode last week talking with Katie Allred about on the subject of how to use AI in your church communications. And it's a major discussion right now, right? And figuring out what that's going to look like. So 100%.
Yeah. And look, I think, the reality is most people aren't even going to know it's there. At the minute, it's kind of at the forefront and it's all this sort of noise around it. But the reality is we move into this age, a lot of the products that you're going to be using to do what you do now, it's going to be in the background and it's just going to feel intuitive. That's why I'm kind of deep diving at a very rapid rate of knots.
Awesome. Well, the next question is, what's a quote or maybe some advice that has stuck with you over the years?
Kindness costs nothing.
It's a great one.
And there are moments where I don't feel like being kind.
Yes.
But it's free and people respond to kindness. When you don't feel like being kind, that's the moment to be kind.
Great advice. I love that. Final question is, what is one thing that you would like to communicate to our audience of church leaders today?
Wow. Okay. One thing. It's not about your church. It's about the mission of God in the hands of ordinary people. Wow. Don't just think programmatically. You're a leader of a large organization, and that's wonderful. But how can you activate your congregations to live out the Great Commission? And that's probably the big question I see for all of us now in church leadership. It isn't necessarily that we can do a great Sunday service. It is how do we activate people into the Great Commission? And all the research I'm seeing is that's on a downward trajectory. And how, as church leaders, it's the responsibility is in our hands to motivate, to encourage, to rebuke, and to guide people into living faithfully out the Great Commission.
Yeah, such a good word for today. Steve, this has been incredible. I feel like I've taken so many notes. I feel like I'm going to walk away from this and I'm ready to try about 10 different ideas. So I'm so grateful for you being on here with us today. I know that people will want to know how they can get in touch with you. What would be the best way for them to get in contact with you, to learn about your services? Can you share any about that?
Yeah. You can just visit my blog. I blog about this sort of stuff all the time. I'm still old school. stevefogg.com. Or you can just email me, steve@stevefogg.com. And I'm really happy to have a chat with anyone if you've got questions about what we talked about today.
That's incredible. And I know that you operate a marketing agency just for churches, right? Like you're actively helping different ministries all over the place to work on their messaging and their communication, right?
Yeah. And I love serving churches, and just like even just what we talked about with prayer and what we talked about with just being found, and my heart always skips a beat when I see churches get found. It's just one of the joys of my life.
Love that. Love hearing your heart today, Steve, on all of this subject. And I'm encouraged to go and to make it better in my own ministry. And so I know that our listeners are really appreciating it as well. So thank you again for being on here with us today.
Really, really good to see you again, Kendall.
Yeah, thank you. It's good to see you. And for everyone who's listening and watching along today, thank you so much for taking time to check this episode out. We're so appreciative. If it has been valuable to you, something that would just mean the world to us is for you to follow us wherever you're listening to this podcast. If you're watching along today on YouTube, hit that subscribe button, because we want to be able to get these episodes out to you as we put out more of them, and we continue to have these conversations with different different ministry leaders. And if it was valuable to you, share with somebody. Come on, if you know someone who's trying to figure out church communications and how to build live streaming and church online, if you've got a friend in ministry, drop them a link and spread the word about this. It goes a really long way as we're trying to get this in the ears of as many ministry leaders as possible. And so thank you again for joining us today, for listening in. Steve, thank you for being with us. And we just hope that we will see you all next time right here on Church Leadership Lab.
This episode of the Church Leadership Lab podcast is brought to you by Ministry Brands, the largest provider of church technology software. Over 90,000 churches rely on Ministry Brands for their single platform solution that brings together all the digital tools a church needs. From online giving to websites to church management software and more, Ministry Brands is leading the way in simple to use, innovative solutions, all with the goal of empowering healthy churches. To learn more, visit ministrybrands.com.